Okay, so we're going to talk about Hart Crane Voyages 2. And in the interests of full disclosure, I've already analyzed the poem in depth. So this is mostly just going to be Will responding to my theories.
That's correct.
So, okay, all right.
Now, should we just go by stanza? Would that be best?
Well, let me at least put forth the main theory.
Okay.
Which is it's a death, not necessarily a death wish. He's talking to the sea, and he's going to commit suicide. Now I should point out that there is a critic. I think his last name is Richmond. He believes that not only is he dying in the sea, he's also resurrecting. He's dying and then resurrecting. Mm-hmm. There is evidence for that theory, but I don't think it's completely strong enough. But we'll see what you think.
Yes.
As we read through the poem.
As I'm looking at this, so I may have comments on that in the very last stanza, but let's start from the beginning.
Okay, so, and yet this great wink of eternity, of rimless floods, unfettered leewardings, Samite sheeted and processioned, where her undinal vast belly moonward bends, laughing the rapt inflections of our love.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there is a semicolon there, but the next stanza really kind of breaks off in a new direction. So right. This is a sentence fragment without a main verb.
Okay.
So, great wink of eternity. I think this refers to the sea.
Mm-hmm.
Now, eternity. Why eternity? Because the sea, it does appear to be never ending.
Yes.
All right, like eternity.
I will cut in that I agree that eternity and the sea are synonyms in this case.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then wink is it's a glimpse of eternity.
Mm-hmm.
So, or like a small section of eternity.
Yes.
Not complete. Okay. Rimless floods. Why rimless? Because
uncontained, eternal. They can't be contained.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, but
I don't mean to cut you off. You give me your interpretation, and we'll comment on it.
No, you're doing fine.
Okay.
You're doing fine. You just say whatever you like.
Okay.
But I also think that lakes have rims, whereas seas do not.
That's correct. I totally agree.
Right. Unfettered leewardings.
Mm-hmm.
Any?
Same thing, basically. Unfettered and without limit.
Okay, without limit. Now, I interpreted it as boats have a leeward side.
Mm-hmm.
But boats are fettered. You're in a boat and you're fettered to the boat, whereas the sea is, unlike the boat, it's unfettered.
Correct.
All right. Samite sheeted. Now, I think Crane made a mistake there. I think he should not have written these words. But Samite, it means it's a medieval garment, silk.
Yes.
Maybe I've looked at some pictures of Samite garments. They're not all that flowing. I can sort of understand, you have some of these robes which are very flowing, like
right.
the sea, but I don't think a Samite is a good description of a sea. But he wrote it.
Of course.
Okay, and then processioned. The only way I can interpret processioned is it's associated. Processions are associated with funerals, and funerals are associated with death.
And hence Samite sheeted, like the sheeted dead, if you will.
Okay.
That's the term. That's a phrase I've heard. The sheeted dead.
All right. So that's my own explanation for processioned.
Okay.
Her undinal vast belly. So it took me a while to figure out, but her does refer to the sea.
Yes. Let me cut in here. So her undinal vast belly, moonward bends. This is the influence of the tides, if you will. And then undinal vast belly kind of communicates pregnancy.
Well, I interpret it as the ocean or the sea is going to consume him eventually.
Or it could be. I mean, it could also be. Yeah, like I get an impression of erotic imagery here, almost. The vast belly moonward bends, laughing the rapt inflections of our love. So I think there's like an almost romantic image here with the ocean, with the moon itself.
Yeah,
and
he's in love with the sea.
right, and then the moon itself, the vast belly. That's kind of a literal thing almost. Moonward bends. That's the influence of the moon on the tides, for instance.
Yeah, so literally the sea does bend toward the moon.
Yes.
But I also kind of think that the moon is associated with the night, and the night is associated with death.
I would think that too. I think what we're dealing with, I think we may be dealing with an overlap of a lot of these metaphors, which is fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Which is fine.
And then we should explain undinal. So an undine is
Like a water elemental, if you will.
water elemental. But the key fact that I discovered was that the undine, when it marries a mortal, it's immortal. But when it marries a human, it becomes mortal.
Right. Could we say that ties into the notion of the tides? That tidal motion, perhaps, being governed by time, hence being governed by death. Does that make sense?
A little, but I think that's a little bit of a stretch.
Possibly.
I see what you're thinking.
Right. I mean, this is just speculation at this point. But I think what we are saying is we have eternity. We have the imagery of the ocean, the image of the moon, and then we're also dealing with death imagery and potentially romantic, erotic imagery as well.
Okay. Now, also, we should point out that I don't think it fits exactly. So I don't think the sea is going to die when the narrator...
Oh, no, I totally agree.
Yes,
I totally agree.
Suicides in the sea.
Right.
But you can't make everything fit. Now, inflections... Inflect literally means bend inward.
Yes.
I think that describes the waves.
I concur. And that ties into the tidal imagery as well with the moon.
And also wrapped also, if you wrap something, it kind of looks like a wave.
That's correct.
Now, laughing, I forget.
Now, is laughing a celebration of our love, of mortal love, or a mockery of mortal love?
See, originally I thought mockery.
Yeah.
That's what I originally thought.
Uh-huh.
But that doesn't really fit with the rest of the poem.
It sounds more benign than that. I think. I don't think it is. I don't think it is mockery.
Now, what I think now, I now think that it refers to the sound that the waves make when they break. Mm-hmm. But we should point out that a lot of poets make this connection, that the waves, but they usually say that the waves are groaning or lamenting or crying.
Right. There's a poet. I don't know who says it. It's a poem that the ocean is forever moving graves or something like that. The waves, I mean.
Okay, yeah. I should point out that Richmond, that's the only critic I've managed to take seriously on this issue. He thinks that when you smile, you curve your mouth, and that the curves are like the waves. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I'm not. Laughing the rapt inflections of our love. Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with Richmond's interpretation.
All right, so stanza 2. Take this sea, whose diapason knells on scrolls of silver snowy sentences, the sceptred tear of whose session rends, as her demeanor's motion well or ill, all but the pieties of lovers' hands. Okay, so diapason is a type of sound. So the sea is making a sound.
Yes.
On scrolls of silver snowy sentences.
Okay.
So I think sentences, I kind of associate that with sentences in a judgment. So,
well, I'm not so sure. Scrolls of silvery snowy sentences, I think that's just the motion of the moonlight on the water.
Well, actually, I think the scrolls look like a wave. Scrolls.
Right, but then we get the silver. That's one thing. Yeah, you should get the scrolling waves, but the silver snowy sentences. I think that's the play of moonlight on the water.
Oh, I thought it was the foam on the waves.
No, but yes, but again, I'm just trying back the moon image. I'm tying back into the moon imagery of the first stanza. Yeah, but I think we're both right.
Yeah. You could say that the silver refers to the moonlight on the sea. Right. I didn't think of that. And snowy as well is also white. It refers
to... And the foam, of course. Yeah, sure.
But I think sentences is associated with judgment and condemnation and death.
Hence the sceptered terror of whose sessions... Okay.
Yeah, so sceptered, I associate that with authority and power.
Yes.
And it has this power because it's going to kill him soon. And then whose session rends as her demeanors, her refers to the sea,
Right.
demeanors, motion, will, or ill. So the sea, its demeanor changes.
And I think the scepter tears the moon, because those changes in the sea are from the tidal influence. An idea.
And then session rends, I would interpret that as, capable of tearing apart.
Right. I agree, but also that rending would also, and I keep referring back to tidal motion, but the waves, that's weird, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm inclined to say that the terror may be the moon. Her demeanor's motion, well or ill.
I think every her refers to the sea. Every use of the pronoun her.
Yeah, I think so, because if you're going by the image, yeah, you may be right. Let me see.
Because remember, moon has only been used so far as an adjective. Okay? He's only used the moon word as an adjective.
Right, but I'm inclined to say that implies the moon itself. But you may be right that the scepter terror is not the moon. Again, this is just speculation as we go line by line.
Okay, now the last line, all but the pieties of lovers' hands. Now let's just at least get the grammatical relationships right. So the session rends everything but the pieties of lovers' hands.
Okay, so in other words, love is the strongest force, and death, time, etc. cannot part the lovers themselves.
Okay, all right. Because I was going to say it doesn't make sense to me because he's going to kill himself. So I would think the session would rend.
Right, but you spoke of resurrection as being a theme in the poem.
Yeah, so this might be
a reference to that ultimate resurrection.
Yeah, because the sea is going to kill him almost, but then he's going to resurrect.
And I'm looking at some of the lines at the very, very bottom. For example, bequeath us to no earthly shore.
So you bequeath living things. You don't bequeath dead things. Or you bequeath things that are valuable.
Right.
You don't bequeath.
So I bequeath, they're not going to be bequeathed to death, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go back. So
yeah,
we're on stanza 3.
Okay, so. And onward as bells off San Salvador, salute the crocus lusters of the stars. In these poinsettia meadows of her tides, adagios of islands, O my prodigal, complete the dark confessions her vain spell. Okay, so San Salvador, that's the island that Columbus first landed on. He named it San Salvador.
And the second line, salute the crocus lusters of the stars. That's quite obvious, the yellowish golden lusters of the stars.
But why crocus?
Crocus, it means yellow. It's a plant, but it also means the color yellow.
So okay, all right. I didn't know that.
In these poinsettia meadows of her tide. Now that is a. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Now, okay, so. Oh, and by the way, Richmond thinks that onward. He's sailing onward.
Yes.
Richmond thinks bells refers to not literal bells, but the waves making the sound. And I kind of agree with that.
I'm not sure. I mean, are we in the Caribbean? That seems to be the case.
Yeah, he's definitely in the Caribbean.
Okay, well, I think it could actually be quite literal. The bells off San Salvador. If he's delivering the soliloquy and he's contemplating the waters, he may actually hear the bells of San Salvador.
Okay, all right. Possible. Okay. Now the poinsettia meadows of her tides. Poinsettias are red and green.
Right. Well, let's look. Here's interesting. It says, complete the dark confession, her veins smell, which strikes me as blood, the spilling of blood, a suicidal act maybe, turning the meadows of her tides bloody.
Mm-hmm. And also, okay, now, adagios of islands. This is actually one of the few expressions that Hart himself explained. So he wrote in a letter to Harriet Monroe what this means. And he says it's the rhythm one feels as one sails through the islands.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, oh my prodigal, I think he's talking to himself there. He's talking to himself.
Maybe this. maybe this lover has already committed suicide, dark confessions of her veins, and he is supposed to complete that act with a mutual suicide, thus bloodying the waters and turning them poinsettia meadows.
But then you're gonna bring in an interpretation that her refers to an actual person.
Right. No, I'm just saying, again, this is just speculation.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think we're looking at suicide here.
Yeah, but I'm thinking that my prodigal he's talking to himself. He's calling himself a prodigal.
Right. No. I'm agreeing with you. Complete the dark confessions her veins spell.
Yeah.
Dark.
So what does
that seems suicidality, the opening of the vein, spilling blood.
Oh, okay.
And then that blood, he's supposed to complete that dark confession with a mutual act of suicide. And the dark confession, the spilling of the blood, is what have turned the meadows poinsettia, which is that blood red color. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. But I think to be even more accurate, so we can interpret confessions with, I looked it up, the 5th definition in the Oxford English Dictionary, which is just a set of beliefs.
Yeah, sure.
It doesn't have to be a set of beliefs that you don't want to share. It could just be a set of religious beliefs.
Well, it says dark confession, so it can be a confession to despair, really.
Yeah, okay. So complete in this sense then would mean fulfill this belief that...
Right.
So she has this belief that you need to commit suicide.
Yes. And to complete that confession, he has to engage in that mutual act of suicide.
But I don't think it's mutual. It's just him.
No. When I say mutual, she's already committed suicide.
Well, I think...
then he's to commit suicide after the fact.
Yeah, but I don't agree with the interpretation that there's another woman that committed suicide first. I think it's the ocean is urging him to commit suicide.
I don't think it's urging him to commit suicide. This is a statement he's making before consigning himself to the ocean in death. I don't think the ocean's necessarily encouraging it so much. But that goes back to what I'm saying. If there's another lover, this goes back to the pieties of a lover's hands.
But it could be that confession is his confession.
But it's confession's her veins spell.
Yeah, but her veins indicate that her veins indicate that you should commit suicide.
Let's keep going. Let's do Santa 4.
Okay, all right. Okay, so mark how her turning shoulders wind the hours, and hasten while her penniless rich palms pass superscription of bent foam and wave. Hasten while they are true, sleep, death, desire, close round one instant in one floating flower.
One instant is the act of suicide, I think.
No, I don't. No.
Sleep, death. So he's referencing ocean. Sleep, death, desire. All close round one instant in one floating flower. I think that's the act of drowning himself.
Oh yeah.
And we have this conversion of sleep, death, and desire.
Yeah.
But mark how her turning shoulders wind the hours.
I think turning shoulders is the ocean's wave.
Yeah, I think I agree. It also says hasten while her penniless rich palms. I like that. It's implying a richness that is not monetary.
Yeah.
Right. So there's value that is not of money in the wave. Past superscription of bent foam and wave. I think that's obvious.
No, it's not obvious.
Well, let's see. Let's take a look. Hasten while her... no, it's not. Let's see. Hasten her pain... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so he's talking to himself. So he's saying, mark how. Look at how her waves... I interpret wind the hours as past the time.
Okay.
Notice how her waves pass the time. Hasten. So he's telling himself, hurry up.
Yes, I agree.
Do what you need to do while her palms would be her waves.
Turning shoulders with the hours, I think that just refers to the natural rhythms of the ocean. Tides, currents, that kind of thing. So there's a certain current that's ideal. Past superscription of bent foam and wave. I'm sorry?
So her palms or her waves, past superscription, like express something, write out something,
foam and okay.
indicate something.
Well, past superscription of bent, foam, and wave.
So I think past superscription means she's expressing something. She's communicating something.
Past superscription, I think it just means, if anything, diving beneath the wave. Superscription is something that's overwritten, as in, the foam and the wave overwrite the depths beneath, if you will, which ties into the next couplet. Sleep, death, desire, close round while one. This is referring to the act of drowning, I think, penetrating past the superscription of bent, foam, and wave. So again, the suicide thing,
Yeah. So hasten, I think it has the same meaning as the first hasten. So hurry up.
Yeah, hurry up and do it. Absolutely.
Now, while they are true, I think that would mean like while they exist.
Mm-hmm.
Would you? That's how I interpreted it as while they exist.
Honestly, I think it just refers to the current. There's a certain. She may have committed suicide at a certain time of day, at a certain place, and he really wants to do the same thing.
Okay.
See, because he's cognizant of time, passing of time, the behavior of the currents, foam and wave. So I think he's just waiting to a specific moment to drown himself.
All right. Now, I have something else which I'm not sure about.
Well, let's talk about it. Go for it.
So there's 3 mentions of flowers.
Okay.
Poinsettias, crocus, and flower in this stanza right here in one floating flower. So there's 3 mentions of flowers, and when Ophelia commits suicide in the water, there's a lot of flowers mentioned in that passage.
Sure, I see the correlation, but I don't necessarily think it's necessary to when Hart was composing the poem.
Okay,
but I definitely see the parallel.
Yeah. So he might have had Ophelia in mind. He might not have. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so final stanza. Bind us in time, O seasons clear and all.
Yes.
O minstrel galleons of carried fire. Bequeath us to no earthly shore until is answered in the vortex of our grave. The seal's wide spindrift gaze toward paradise.
Resurrection?
Well,
I think no, I'm sorry. I keep cutting you off. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm not completely sold on the resurrection.
Okay.
So the evidence for resurrection is the use of the word bequeath. The ocean or the sea is made of water, and baptism is associated with water.
Right.
The other evidence is flowers. So flowers die and then they grow again.
Yes.
There's 3 flowers in here.
Okay, so also the flower of the 4th stanza of sleep, death, and desire will rebloom, if you will.
Yeah, and 1 floating flower.
So he commits suicide, but it ultimately comes back. I want to point out, so bequeath us in time, bequeath us to no earthly short until, so their bodies will remain drowned. They will not be cast up onto the shore again until a certain point, which is the last 2 lines. Until is answered in the vortex of our grave, the seal's wide spindrift gaze toward paradise, which again I think, following what you were saying, could be resurrection, of course. Yeah. Also, I'm sorry, let me say one more thing. So within Christian theology, there's this idea that the dead are in their tombs, but ultimately they will be called out of these tombs to paradise.
What, the day of resurrection?
Right, the day of resurrection, precisely. So that may have been those last few lines may have been borrowed from Christian eschatology. So what's our theme? Let's summarize.
Well, hold on.
I'm sorry.
We should talk about, there's a couple other things that are unclear. So bind us in time, you take that as keep us in the grave until the day of resurrection.
Bind us in time. So resurrection entails an emergence into eternity. Bind us in time. They are not released into eternity just yet.
All right.
And bind us in time. So this is resurrection right here. Bequeath us to no earthly shore. Emergence from the waters. Emergence from the grave until that condition.
Yeah.
Which ending in toward paradise.
Yeah. Now, spindrift means it's like a continuous spray.
Yes.
So it's white.
Right. Seal's wide spindrift gaze, I think that's just the sea's orientation toward paradise.
Yeah, something. Or I interpret it as the seal.
Oh, the seal is death. I'm sorry. Yeah, the seal is the grave.
Of our grave.
Yeah.
In the vortex of our grave. No, that's just like that's just a prepositional phrase. So you could delete that without loss of grammaticality.
Right.
Bequeath us to no earthly shore until is answered the seal's wide spindrift gaze, or until is answered the seal's gaze. So what does it mean?
So the seal is gazing toward paradise. This is when paradise gazes back or comes back, hence resurrection. By the standard for resurrection.
No, see, I don't. I think I interpret that as the sea. When you look at paradise, you're asking yourself, well, what's it about? What's in paradise?
Right.
So until it's answered to him, what's in paradise?
So he's asking questions, and paradise is meant to answer. No, I don't think we should take answer as so much as a question, but a return of a gaze, a return of a regard of something. So the grave is looking toward paradise. Paradise ultimately acknowledges the grave. Rather than we ask a question of paradise, paradise responds with an answer.
Nah.
We'll arm wrestle for it.
What?
We'll arm wrestle for it.
What I think it means is do not wash us up on the shore until it's answered to us what lies in paradise.
No, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I think this says we don't allow us to be resurrected until a certain time. I don't think it's this epistemic kind of thing. Like we have questions about the afterlife, and we can't be resurrected until those questions are answered.
All right. Well, we'll just agree to disagree, and let's just. What does seasons refer to? So he says, "Oh, seasons."
Time.
Okay.
Bind us in time. Oh, seasons. Clear. I would say time.
Yeah. So he's talking to time itself.
Yes.
Now, oh, minstrel galleons of carried fire. What does that refer to? Who was the minstrel galleons of carried fire?
Minstrel galleons of carried fire.
I mean, I think it's the sea because he's asking the sea. So why is it the sea? So minstrel. The sea sings with its waves.
Right.
So that's minstrel. Galleons are warships. So
I think they're the waves.
Yeah.
I would think they're the waves. Galleons of carib fire. Maybe that just refers to dawn and dusk.
Well, I interpreted fire as the sea is capable of consuming, just like fire is.
Maybe carib fire. Minstrel galleons of carib fire. I'm more inclined to take it as a reference to the sun, or maybe to these. So we got the crocus lustres of the stars at night.
No, but when you say of carried fire, so these are galleons. So it's a property of galleons. So if you believe galleons refers to the waves, then you believe that the waves has this property. No,
I would say that if the galleons are the waves, it means they bear the light and the reflection, the illumination of carib fire, of the sun, is my interpretation.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're saying that the waves are capable of shining.
Well, I mean, just as we have the undinal vast bellies moonward, reflecting the moonlight, take the sea on scrolls of silver, snowy sentences, that kind of thing.
Okay, so I see what you're saying.
And then also, you had mentioned the bells of San Salvador as being waves. If they are waves, they salute the crocus lustres of the stars via reflection.
All right. Yeah. Okay, good. So I think we got it.
I think that was an excellent analysis.
All right.